Good evening and welcome to this episode of In Harmony with Nature. I'm your host for this evening's episode, Mike Shacklock. With me this evening is John Sheppard. He is manager of storm drainage for the county of Halifax. And we're going to be talking about the environmental impact on watercourses this evening. Now, although John is with the county of Halifax, he's not going to be talking about any specific programs there, nor any policies or information coming directly from the county. He's just coming to talk about the topic in general. So welcome to the program, John.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Okay, you have brought a few slides and a book to refer to through the presentation. Do you wish to start with the slides now, or would you want to have a general discussion on what the topic is about tonight?
Just a couple of comments. First, the topic is going to be water courses, natural water courses, and the impact that people that live in the watershed of these water courses can have, residents, homeowners, and so on. There's a tendency for people to often point the finger at government, industry, big business, and so on with regard to the negative impacts of those activities on water courses. But the people that live in watersheds themselves in some way can also have an impact, and that impact tends to be ongoing and permanent. Not necessarily dramatic, but the impacts are very real. One thought to keep in mind, I guess, as we're going through this is that anything that is applied to the ground, anything that falls on the ground, can in fact be washed into these water courses. And keeping that in mind, what I want to now do is go to the slides and talk about storm drainage and its impact in relationship with the issue. The way in which stormwater can get into natural water courses has an impact on the environment and in terms of what goes into those water courses. The slide shows that there are three ways that runoff can get into water courses. The first is storm sewer discharge, and in the urban areas of Metro and the surrounding areas, storm sewers are a significant way in which water can get into water courses. The other is direct surface runoff, and that would tend to be in areas that are directly adjacent to lakes and streams and so on. The third is groundwater, and the rain that falls on the ground can percolate into the ground and then gets into the lakes over a much slower, longer period of time as groundwater. The first two means tend to be much more direct runoff, and they make their way from the ground into the lake very quickly. Mike, this slide shows a catch basin in the street. I'm sure it's something that most of the viewers...
Everyone's seen those things.
Oh, that's right. Many people, though, aren't quite sure what they are. Again, they're catch basins, and the catch basin is a way that storm runoff gets into the underground storm sewer system.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people have used them for getting rid of paint and other things that they don't really want around the house, but that's not a good idea.
That's not a good idea. There is no means of treatment or collection beyond the catch basin. It simply goes into a pipe, which in turn runs normally directly into a natural water course. Mm-hmm. So it should be not used as a means of disposal. That system is often confused with the sanitary sewer system, and the two are quite separate and distinct. I would like to show on the next slide the schematic that I've prepared to show a typical street in a developed area, and it will graphically illustrate the two functions that a storm sewer system provides. If you can zoom in on the one house that I have circled with a dashed line, the dashed line is meant to represent what we call a foundation drain. And the foundation drain intercepts groundwater, prevents it from entering into the basement of the house, and gets into the storm sewer system in the street. Now, if we can just pull back and get the broader picture again, you can notice catch basins also tied into the storm system, and the second function of that storm sewer system is to take surface water, get it into the pipe, and get it into the natural water course.
That being the stream in this case, and then the larger body being probably a lake or something
Yes,
of that sort, or the ocean even.
It can be the ocean as well, that's right. What I have shown there is a typical kind of arrangement for a storm sewer system in a serviced area. To give some indication of how quickly water can get from the street and into the catch basin and into the watercourse system, most land in areas that are developed around here tends to be slopes such that the velocities in the pipe are in the order of 5 to 10 feet per second. If you work that out, you will find that water that enters a catch basin will get into a watercourse system in the order of about 5 minutes. So that house is located as close as a quarter of a mile from the watercourse.
It's much faster than I would have thought.
It's much faster and much more direct, I guess, than most people would think. And it's that sense I would like to convey to people, the importance of considering what is put into that catch basin. What I have shown on this slide, Mike, is a schematic of what happens when rain falls on the ground. I've shown by virtue of arrows that some of the water will be direct runoff into the lake. Other water will percolate into the ground and become part of what we call the water table. It's the elevation of water in the ground. That water is always moving and tends to drain towards the lake. The water that becomes groundwater moves much more slowly than surface water, and one might expect groundwater to take a matter of hours, days, weeks, even months to get from a developed area into a lake or watercourse. Also, just to give some sense of how much water enters the ground compared to that which is direct runoff into lakes, in residential subdivisions, we would expect typically that about 50% of the water that falls would end up as groundwater, and the other 50% is direct runoff into the lake. This slide that I now have up will show a number of activities in developed areas that will contribute to environmental damage to a lake or natural water course. And I'll just run through these very quickly. I want to talk about each of these: lawn care practices, automobiles, furnace oil, hazardous materials, doggy-doo, and I'm sure we're all anxious to get to that one. And the last that I have on my list is on-site sewage disposal. This list is not meant to be complete, but it's simply some of the activities and issues that I've been involved in myself on a personal level. The first that I want to talk about is lawn care practices. Most of us are certainly aware that that fertilizers and herbicides are the kinds of products that people apply to their lawns. Fertilizer obviously to make the grass grow and make it green. Herbicides to kill weeds. Most of us do like to have a lawn that is aesthetically pleasing. But there's an impact and a negative aspect to doing that. The fertilizers work simply because they're high in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Yet when those materials end up in a lake system, they can have quite dramatic negative effects. I'd like to just refer for a moment to a study that the municipality recently had done. It was with regard to First Lake in Lower Sackville, and it dealt with it examined the condition of the lake relative to bacterial and chemical contamination in particular. The study was done by the Center for Water Resources Studies, which is a branch of the Technical University of Nova Scotia. Just a quote from the one section in which we deal with nutrients and their impact on the lake. The study says that any additional phosphorus inputs into First Lake could lead to obvious changes in water quality, such as unacceptable levels of turbidity, which would limit recreational uses. What the study also points out is that First Lake is really no different from most lakes that are in an urban setting. And the fertilizers that people consider to be essential with regard to lawn care do have a negative effect on those lakes.
So what we need to do is pass along an idea or a concept that so much is enough, and then more than that is too much? Is there any guideline that we can, a rule of thumb that we might be able to follow as to what's too much, going too far?
I think my advice to people would not necessarily be specifically with regard to amounts. There is some evidence that the use of organic materials and products has less or results in less of an impact on natural watercourses. I'd suggest to people that they contact their lawn care experts. There are lots of people around that deal in this kind of business, and I think that those people would be better qualified to give specific advice.
All right.
Just as an example of an alternative to herbicides, I did a mini project myself last summer. I didn't use any herbicides on my lawn. It took me roughly an hour every other week to weed the lawn by hand. Not a terrific investment in time, and by so doing I was able to get the same results as if I had applied herbicide to the lawn. So that's the kind of alternative perhaps that people may wish to consider. The second item that was on our list was automobiles, and I think most people are to some degree familiar with the impact that automobile emissions have on the environment in general. Those emissions can become airborne, they may settle on the land, but in any event they tend to end up in that watercourse system. I'm hardly an expert in that area, but I think that that's just one indication of the kind of impact that our day-to-day activities have on our natural watercourses. I'd like to now go on to another slide that I took in Lower Sacklock here not really so very long ago, and I took it simply because it shows where somebody apparently had changed the oil in their vehicle right immediately adjacent to a catch basin. And again, we spoke a few minutes ago about how directly runoff from a catch basin could get into the lake. The next topic that I would like to deal with, Mike, is furnace oil. I've had occasion over the last couple of months to deal on, or I've had occasion to deal with 3 specific oil leaks from houses, from tanks located outside of houses. The slide that's up on the screen shows schematically how a leak from a fuel tank will get into a watercourse system. You can see the tank located at the back of the house. Typically what happens is that the bottom of the tank will rust out. The oil will leak into the ground, seep down through the ground, will enter the footing drain system around the house, into the storm system, and into the storm sewer system, and then directly into the watercourse. This appears to happen fairly frequently, and it's a kind of thing I think can be prevented simply by people inspecting their tanks on a more regular basis. If people are unsure what to look for, again, I'd suggest that they contact their fuel oil supplier, and I'm sure that those people can give some advice in terms of the condition of individuals' tanks.
They might want to do simply to save themselves a bit of money, because a significant loss of fuel oil might be a rather expensive matter, and running out of heat at the wrong time too. So.
Yes, the limited experience I've had over the last several months suggests that the leak can be significant. And in one instance, the leak was so significant that the homeowner's insurance company ended up coming in and actually digging up the whole lawn, removing all of the soil which had been contaminated, and then had to go to the expense of removing that material and disposing of it in some location. So the impact can be great, and certainly the cost of cleanup can also be significant.
Is this something that's legislated, that sort of a cleanup is mandatory under those circumstances?
The jurisdiction for the cleanup typically falls under the mandate of the Provincial Department of Environment, and I work very closely with them in these kinds of situations. They deal with the situation depending upon the severity of the problem, but there's no doubt that they have considerable leeway or flexibility to enact certain powers that they have.
But generally the homeowner is responsible.
Generally the homeowner is responsible. I think the other possibility, the other potential is that depending upon the arrangement the homeowner has with the fuel oil company, that conceivably they could also be responsible.
So the fuel oil company might be a source of some help in determining the state of the system, a maintenance man or somebody who does that sort of installation work?
Yes, I think the fuel oil company especially would be able to provide that kind of advice.
Good.
The next activity that I had on my list is hazardous materials, and again that could include a wide range of materials. What I meant it to refer to specifically was paint, varnish, household cleaners, that nature of thing that most of us tend to have around the house. And I wanted to point out that those kinds of materials should not be disposed of in the catch basin that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. They should not be dumped on the ground because, again, the groundwater also ends up in the lake. And they should not be disposed of in the garbage pickup. If they're disposed of in the normal garbage pickup, when the compactor does its thing, the container will be squashed and the material will end up, or the product will end up on the ground surface. So that doesn't leave a lot of options, and I would suggest to people that if they're in doubt about how to get rid of those materials, that they contact the Metropolitan Authority, who are the agency responsible for garbage pickup.
Okay, and there also have been a few neighborhood or municipality depots set up in the spring of the year or some other time for the pickup of those sorts of things, or not pickup, but the drop-off at shopping centers or community centers where paint and solvents and those things can be dropped off. So I guess what we should do is hang on to these things until we see that opportunity and take advantage of it.
Well, that tends to be a bit of a nuisance for people, but
well, it does. Yeah.
You're right. I think it's an annual kind of event, and certainly I would encourage people to do that. Hang on to those products and keep them around the house until they can be disposed of in such a manner.
I had some that missed the last year's pickup, or drop-off, I should say. I don't know where I got pickup from, but and the pile or the stack is now getting bigger, so I have an even larger contribution to make whenever the next opportunity arises.
Well, it's better to hang on to it than put it in the garbage.
I'm hanging on to mine.
The next item on the list is the one that everybody wants to see. It's doggy-doo. And the fact of the matter is that pet feces, if you want to more politely call it, is a serious source of bacteria and contamination of lakes. Again, from the study that I mentioned earlier, one of the conclusions with regard to First Lake was that the most likely source of bacteria in the lake is dog feces, which contains bacteria that can threaten human health. I have a neighbor that has a dog. Most of us do, it seems, and the neighbor chooses to walk his dog around the neighborhood on a daily basis, and of course the dog does his thing. I would encourage homeowners, I guess, to bring along a pooper scooper, the traditional garbage bag, that nature of thing. Make sure that the material that we're talking about doesn't end up in the street, doesn't end up in the gutter. Again, it will go into the catch basin with the rainfall and the runoff, and into the lake, as will any other material.
I've approached some people who have walked down my street, and they're obviously not carrying that sort of paraphernalia, a plastic bag or a scoop or 2 plastic bags, whatever the case may be. And I asked them why not, and they said, well, I never really thought about it. And I said, well, think about me. I'm working in my garden, and I inadvertently come across this, and it's not very good for me. So there's that sort of thing that you can hit somebody with. And there's also the environmental thing, as you've pointed out. It just contributes to a real degradation of the environment. So if you do have a dog and you're out taking it for a walk, please think of others and the environment. There's my bit.
Good advice. The last item on our activity list, Mike, was on-site sewage disposal systems. And those typically are not in suburban or urban areas. They're in the more rural areas of the county or of Metro. And people don't realize, but their on-site disposal systems do require a small degree of maintenance. The septic tank needs to be pumped out on a regular basis. If it isn't, the solids that are in the tank will overflow into the disposal system, will plug up the system, and it will malfunction. The net result of that is that there will be contamination from the on-site disposal system, which will leak into the adjacent lake.
Okay, I guess the frequency with which one of these tanks has to be pumped out is, of course, how many people are in the home. But this definitely does have to be done. There's no way that the bacteria can manage to overcome all this? It's something that a homeowner that does have a septic tank and weeping field has to take into consideration on a regular basis of some sort.
That's right. It's inevitable that if there isn't some clean-out done on a regular basis, that system will malfunction. And again, I would recommend to people that they call their local septic tank cleaning company and get the details from them, find out how often it needs to be done, and so on. So basically, that's a rundown of the kinds of activities that take place in virtually any watershed. It perhaps gives people an indication of some of the things that we as homeowners and residents can do our thing to protect the environment. With regard to the lawn care practices that I mentioned earlier, the municipality is planning on entering into a pilot project with a local lawn care company to make a better assessment of the kind of advantages that would accrue by using organic lawn care products. I think personally that this is going to be an up-and-coming field, and it appears that it's a viable alternative to the traditional lawn care practices.
I know that I must have been a contributor to the downfall of the environment, because I've used the standard fertilizers available in nurseries or other home supply stores, and used them, I guess, maybe twice a year, in the spring and in the midsummer type of thing. So I guess what I have to do is to look for a more organic product to mitigate the problems that I might be causing then. So they're not as common or plentiful as the regular commercial type. Is that true?
That's quite true. In fact, I started last year to use organic fertilizers myself, and I had a little trouble finding one that was suitable in a supply company around Halifax. When I did find it, I've used it twice since. It handles more easily than synthetic fertilizers. You don't need the spreader that most people use with a synthetic fertilizer. I should point out, too, that regardless of the kind of fertilizer that's used, people should be careful not to let it spill over onto the paved driveway or onto the street. If that happens again, that material will be picked up very readily by the next rainfall after you spread your fertilizer. It will get into the catch basin system very directly and again into the water course. So regardless of what type of material is used, there should be some care taken to try to keep that material off the paved surface of the street.
Okay, what sort of method of spreading is available for that?
Organic fertilizers can simply be spread by hand. They don't seem to have the burning action that synthetic fertilizers do. So in my own case, I simply grab handfuls out of the bag and spread it all over the lawn. It tends to be more bulky than a synthetic fertilizer, so that you don't have to be as careful about the application rate.
And would you need to apply it on a more frequent basis, do you think?
No, as far as I understand, it can be applied... of
course, read the instructions.
Read the instructions.
Sure.
Talk to your lawn care expert.
Okay, then. Well, that's great. Anything else that you wish to cover?
Well, again, just to reiterate, I think it's easy for people to criticize government and big business and so on, but the more lasting impact within a watershed typically is not by the big developer, the development of land. It tends to be people that live in the watershed for the time after that. And I think all of us, if we chip in, can make some kind of an impact on lakes, a positive impact, by dealing with some of the issues that I mentioned here today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we do actually have about another 5 minutes or so to go. Is there anything that you'd like to restate, or perhaps something else that you'd like to cover with us this evening?
Well, this business that you had mentioned, I guess, about the catch basins being a direct point of entry into the system. Mm-hmm. I see many people, as an example, raking their lawns, and they choose to rake the grass into the gutter, and of course it then automatically is picked up by the rainfall and the runoff and ends up in the catch basin system. Even grass and leaves and so on will have a negative impact on water courses. Any organic material like that ends up in a water course system will decay and deteriorate with time, and that deterioration uses up oxygen in the lake system. It is the lower lake levels that often create a problem for fish and other animals that live in that habitat. So be extremely careful about what goes into the catch basin system. My next door neighbor is a great fellow. He's got a nice big lawn. He keeps his property well and so on, but he likes to go out with his rake on an evening, and if there's any doggy-do around, that fellow's just going to rake it right into the gutter. So he probably has no idea of the impact that that activity has on the lake. But our experience in the past is that, particularly with First Lake, we've had an ongoing problem with bacteria levels in the lake, and we've found that several times a year the beach at the upper end or the north end of First Lake has to be closed. And there's no doubt that there are many contributing factors, but it's the pet feces that our experts that studied the topic have recommended to us as a major source of pollution.
Well, I can imagine the lack of desire on the part of your neighbor to pick this deposit up, that he had absolutely nothing to do with being there. So the easiest way out is to do as you described, and perhaps he's got something in the back of his mind that says, I hope that fellow walking his dog comes by this way and doesn't see this, and steps in his own deposit. We've still got a couple of minutes to go, John. What else can we talk about?
Well, many people just fail to realize or understand the impact of their activities on natural watercourses, and for many years in ignorance I put as much fertilizer on my lawn as it could carry. I liked a green lawn, a neat-looking lawn. I put herbicides on it to get rid of the weeds. And it's only by being exposed to this kind of a problem that I've personally become more concerned about it and more aware. And I think that's the case with many people. I don't think that many of us like to think of ourselves as being polluters or having a negative impact on the environment. It's only through education of being exposed to the kinds of impacts that all of our activities have that we can really make a change. So I would encourage people to read about these kinds of topics, get some understanding of what they do and what impact it has. And only through that can there be change, real positive change, and hopefully an improvement for all of the Metro and the lakes and watercourses in Metro.
Okay, well that does seem to be the challenge. The easy way out is, of course, not to do anything. It's the same with recycling, a topic which we've discussed in this forum before, and it appears as though it even comes down to the actions of the average homeowner, that he has to not take the easy way out and apply the commercial fertilizers, but try and find something which is less harmful to the environment and do his bit to make things less drastically affected. So I'd like to thank you very, very much for coming to speak to us tonight about this particular topic, John. And your topic, I think, has been well presented, and I'm sure that the people out there watching will take a little extra thought before they do some of these things which causes this effort. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you very much, Mike.
My guest this evening has been John Sheppard. He's been speaking to us what we can all do to reduce the harmful impact on stormwater and the environment of that sort. This has been In Harmony with Nature. I'm Mike Shacklock. Join us again next week. Good night.